Hello there. Everybody is talking about NFT. Should I buy? Can I make money out of it? Well, let's discuss some basics of NFT. NFT stands for non fungible tokens. Let us build up to the idea of NFT by talking about tangibility, tokenization, fungibility, and rights. And then we talk more details. And finally, the most important question, how to make money. The idea of tangible is that things that you can perceive, especially by the sense of touch. So, real world items like on the left side are tangible, whereas things like software, copyright, or patent, all these are intangible things. They do exist, but you can't touch them. Let's talk about tokenization. Remember, instead of standing in a queue, you could get a token, and that token basically referred to your place in the queue. Also, in some use cases, for example, credit card, you may use the token that maps to the credit card instead of using the credit card itself or passing the actual number of the credit card. So here the idea of token is a reference that maps back to the actual thing to which it refers to. So token may refer to a tangible asset such as a building or an intangible or digital asset like a digital art. Let's talk about fractional ownership. So in 1611 Amsterdam, the Dutch East India Company wanted to raise capital and it decided to sell stock and pay dividends to the shares to the investors. So that's where each investor would own a small fraction of the company. Similarly, in 1694, Bank of England raised money to fund a war by issuing government bonds, and that's where people had fractional ownership, and it doesn't mean you own government, and that's where we'll talk about rights, but it is some kind of fractional share. And similarly, you can have a jet or a yacht or a hotel, and that can be divided into fractional shares. Now, what do we mean by ownership? Sometimes it means access rights. For example, if you have a music, can you play it or use that music in another digital asset? Or it could be other kind of rights, for example, voting, or if interest, basically, for example, you can get a part of the profit. So these are the different kinds of rights that the ownership may refer to. So we are building upon an idea of digital representation of rights, which could be fractional to an asset. Now let's talk about fungibility. So we talked about tangible and intangible items. Tangible items are things that you can touch. Intangibles are software like things. Now let's talk about fungible and versus non-fungible. So a house or a Mona Lisa picture, it is non-fungible. So you can't replace one house with another house. They are two different houses and you cannot trade them. Each house has an identity. But if you compare it with a gold bar or a dollar, so a $1 note is easily replaceable by another $1 note. There is no identity to the note. Similarly, a can of oil can be replaced with each other. Now these are tangible things, and we have seen fungibility and non-fungibility. So let's talk about intangible things. So for example, a Bitcoin. It is intangible and it is also fungible like dollar. Similarly, carbon credits are also intangible things that only exist in digital form, and they are fungible, so they can be replaced. The only thing that matters in fungible things is quantity, how much you have. The actual individual items don't matter. Now here we come to the non-fungible intangible items, and that's what we refer to non-fungible tokens. So the idea is that there are things like, let's say, copyrights. They are intangible, and but they are not fungible, so they cannot be replaced with one another. And if you have a copyright, no one else can use that item. Similarly, NFTs, which will go into detail, fall into this category. The idea is that we have goods, uh, and they can be tangible or intangible, and we have rights about those goods on the left side, which again can be tangible or intangible. So an example of a tangible right is a property document that proves that you are the owner of the property. Uh, Similarly, the intangible right could be a copyright or a patent or a NFT, which proves that you own either the intangible good or the tangible good. So it always, the left side, which are the rights, always refer to an asset on the right side. So there has to be an asset to which they refer. By themselves, they don't make any sense. We have already discussed about right, and what does ownership mean. Does it mean you can read or you can write to it, you can edit it, or does it just mean that you have some access rights so you can play a music when you want? Right is, you need three things. You need a choice of law, so some kind of contract, and then when there are issues, you need a choice of adjudicator, someone who will judge if there are issues, and finally you need an enforcer, somebody who has to enforce that judgment. So once you have all these three things, you basically are covered as far as law is concerned. So in the world of NFTs, what you have is smart contract, which is a piece of code that lives with the NFT. It is enforced by the blockchain. So every time the NFT is transferred, you could put a piece of code that runs, and the enforcement has to be done by the software. So for example, if I want an exclusive access to a particular game entity, let's say gun, then the software that is with which I am playing the game has to enforce that no one else can use unless the proof of ownership is shown by NFT. This is slightly different from the regular way, the traditional way of law, where there are pages and pages of documents, and you have to raise a claim when you see an issue. Here, the system, the blockchain system, is itself enforcing the contract. Now, this also allows things like, I as a creator of a music can say that 80% of all the sale or resale of a particular asset should come to me. So that, as a music developer, I can just create an NFT for a song and give it to people, and they can in turn go and sell it again, and I can really benefit from the network selling effect, where I'm incentivizing the network also, but I'm getting the major chunk because I am the creator of that particular asset. One more thing that NFT allows is the provenance. So it basically tells you the chronology of the ownership, custody, or location of a historical object. So for example, when we buy a real estate, we try to find out whether it is unencumbered or not. We want to go back in history and see who all owned it and has it passed through the right ownerships. Similarly, for artwork, to find out whether it's genuine or not, we try to find out where all it has originated from, and we try to link it back to the original creator. Similarly, if you want to buy a diamond and you want to ensure that it is ethically processed, you would like to know the provenance. For tax purposes also, we are interested in knowing how a good has moved through different companies. so that you can claim taxes. For example, GST lets you take input tax, uh, and discount the input tax. So it might be beneficial for taxes also, provenance. So NFT, because it is stored on the blockchain, you can easily uh, store the provenance for it. Some more things that NFT allows is that because blockchain is based on open ledger, the cost of transfer is very less. It is merely an entry in the ledger. And it is very easy to verify it because it's out there in the open. It is not owned by a company, and you don't have to uh, wait for some permission to do that. Now also remember that asset can be copied, but the copying of NFT doesn't make sense because NFT basically says it links the purchaser's or the owner's identity to the asset. Even if you create copies of it, all of them mean the same. Now there are use cases where you would like to rent something, or give a, let's say you would like to give a asset and make sure that either time or you know quantity based usage you might like to allow. So all those can be also provided by sophisticated smart contracts. The idea is that I should be able to prove ownership when needed. Say, for example, at the access time, I'm trying to play a music, but it shouldn't allow uh, my privacy to be affected. So, for example, I don't want everybody to know what all I own. Or, given an asset, people should not find it easy to find the owners. Here are the example of some NFT tokens. Cool cats or the crypto kitties are popular. So is the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Um, Here is a pet rock. It's not a real rock but a digital picture, and each picture is backed by an NFT. So how does one make money? First is NFT is a store of value. So if you have bought an NFT and it proves that you own a particular asset, if the price of the asset goes up, you being owner, you get more value. So that is one way to make money out of NFT. You also get bragging rights, so you become famous. For example, Jack Dorsey's first tweet has an NFT, and whoever owns it can brag. Some of these NFTs, they act also as social club, so they work as a society and they help each other. And then there are decentralized autonomous organizations that also exist. You can go to a platform like OpenSea to buy. One thing that we have to be careful is that if a creator creates one NFT and you buy it, uh, it the creator should not be creating more NFTs and giving equal amount of ownership. Fractional ownership is okay, but there is also always a chance of creator creating more number of those tokens, and then the value starts dropping. Thank you for listening.